He was respected, celebrated, a voice of a tragedy and a great resilience. A musician from Switzerland turned writer, Binjamin Wilkomirski released a striking book in 1996, Fragments, Memories of a Wartime Childhood, a raw and really poetic account of a young Jewish boy who survived the horror of Nazi concentration camps. The story was heartbreaking, a child taken from his family, a soul crushed by war, a life rebuilt from the ashes of human cruelty. Critics called it beautiful, with a poet's vision and child's state of grace, one of them stated in their review. The writing, simple yet very powerful. It moved reader to tears. The book won prestigious awards, including the National Jewish Book Award. It became a symbol of survival, of memory, and of history. But then, everything collapsed. Because none of it was true. Binjamin Wilkomirski was not from a Jew origin. He had never been in a concentration camp. In fact, he has never even left neutral at the time Switzerland during Second World War. Wilkomirski was accused by the fabrication of the story and intentional lie. But my question is, was he really lying? See, people's memories are very unpredictable. They can change according to events that are happening right now, political and cultural agenda, media exposure, or even suggested information from others like your friend. Hi everyone, my name is Svitlana Pokhvalii and I am Master's in Clinical Psychology, and today we're going to discuss and explore how do we form our memories, what are false memories, how do they occur, and the last but not the least, consequences they might have not only for an individual but also for the whole communities. If you like my content and want me to continue, please like, subscribe to my channel and leave a comment. Your support means a lot to me. So without any further ado, let's get started. Do you remember your childhood? Do you remember how you first rode a bike? Do you remember your 5th birthday when your parents organized a party with clowns in your kindergarten? Or your first pet? Such a beautiful memories, right? But do you really remember that? Or do you think that you remember? Let's break down how our memory works, and then we'll find an answer to this question. Studies have shown that our memories don't look like a photo or a videotape like I'm doing right now, that remain the same no matter how many times we look at them or play them. Citing Elizabeth Loftus, a prominent scientist and researcher in the field of memory, our memory is rather a Wikipedia page that can be changed by different people and different circumstances. By the way, on the side note, in this video I will be citing Elizabeth Loftus' work a lot. She has her own controversies as a researcher, but it is hard to deny her impact on the matter of false memories and overall on memory formation. So, there are 3 processes that neuroscientists and psychologists divide memory into. First one, encoding, how we receive the information. Second one, storage, how we keep this information here in our brains. And third one, retrieval, how we access and reconstruct memories while we are speaking or trying to remember something. Let's break down these processes more in details. So, when we first receive any piece of information, our brain starts the first stage of potential memory process, so-called encoding. In encoding, everything is important. Our sensation like sight, maybe hearing, touch, smell, even taste.
Facts, not memories. That's how you investigate. I know, it's what I used to do. Look, memory can change the shape of a room, it can change the color of a car.
Our emotions play a really big role in this process. Also, a big role plays our attention. We remember those pieces of information better on which we focus the most. What is more, we tend to remember highly emotional information better than that does not evoke any emotional response in us. If the information is not coded, it never becomes a memory we can later retrieve, so we really never remember that. Second one is storage. Let's talk about storage. Our brain doesn't just store memories in a single place, it organizes them into different types. One of the key divisions is between short-term memory and long-term memory. So, short-term memory is like a temporary notepad. It holds small amounts of information for a very brief period of time. Think it as trying to remember a phone number or a Wi-Fi password for just a few seconds. If we don't actively use or repeat this information, it disappears quite quickly. So let's talk now about long-term memory, because on the other hand, it is more like a permanent storage system. It holds things we've learned and experienced over time, such as how to ride a bike, again, drive a car, speak a language. Also, our childhood memories are being stored in long-term memory. But how does this information move from short-term memory to long-term memory? That's where sleep plays a crucial role. Studies have shown that during deep sleep, our brain processes and consolidates information, making short-term memory more permanent. In my childhood, my mom always told me to put a book or a list of words that I need to remember before school under my pillow before going to sleep. It always helped, by the way, always. While that's allegedly just a myth, the idea behind it is somewhat true. Imagine learning a list of new words in foreign language before bed. If you get a good night's sleep, your brain will strengthen those memories, making it easier to recall the words the next day. However, if you don't sleep well, you're more likely to forget them because your brain didn't get the chance to save the information properly. This process is also linked to false memories. Sometimes our brain doesn't just strengthen real memories, it also fills in the gaps, distorts detail, or even creates entirely new memories based on what we accept or believe to be true, or even based on our dreams. Research suggests that sleep deprivation can make false memories more likely. If you're exhausted, your brain struggles to distinguish between real experiences and imagined ones, leading to distorted recollections. This is why eyewitness testimonies from, for example, sleep-deprived individuals are often very unreliable. So retrieval is like hidden play on a mental recording, but unlike a perfect video, our brain doesn't store exact copies of events. Instead, when we recall a memory, we reconstruct it, pulling together different pieces of what actually happened and filling in the gaps using our own logic, past experience, even suggestions from others. Most of the time, we remember important life events quite accurately, I would say. But here is the catch. The same process that helps us recall memories is also what makes them absolutely unreliable. Think about the film Shutter Island, where Leonardo DiCaprio's character questions whether his traumatic memories are real or imagined. He starts to doubt if the horrifying events he remembers actually happened or if they're just fabricated by his mind.
Who is that?
Him? That's the ward. Don't you worry about him, all right?
This might seem extreme, but in reality, our brains do this all the time. Have you ever had a moment where you weren't sure if something really happened or if you saw it in a movie or read it in a book? So this confusion happens because our memory retrieval is not a direct playback. Again, as I told, it's an active reconstruction. And if the pieces of our memory are incomplete, our brain does something fascinating. It fills in the blanks. The same renowned psychologist Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated just how easily false memories can be implemented. In her famous Lost in the Mall study, she took a group of participants and gave them a mix of real childhood memories and one completely fake, that they had been lost in the mall as a child. This one is fake. At first, participants didn't remember this event because, of course, it never happened to them. But after being repeatedly exposed to the false memory, some started to believe it was real. They even added details like remembering a stranger who helped them or how scared they felt. So this experiment proves that memory is not just fragile, it's highly suggestible. A simple suggestion repeated over time can become an actual memory, indistinguishable from real experiences. However, keep in mind that this experiment should be viewed as a historical demonstration, not a definitive statistical proof, because the concept of false memories is proved, but there are some other more recent studies that uses better methodology, and you can look it up, you can read them. I will put links below this video. And now let's go back to Wilkomirski's story, a story of a fake Holocaust survivor. In his book, Wilkomirski claimed that he was born in Latvia, Riga, in a Jewish family. After his family was killed by Nazis, Wilkomirski as a child was transported to concentration camps in Poland, where he had an absolutely horrific experience. Not only the book was thought to be a portrayal of conditions in the death camps, it was also a pure and moving child perspective on war and human violence, a portrayal of a child who has never seen a normal life. Binjamin in the book is so young that the camps are all he knows. Hell is his only reality. According to Wilkomirski, despite all this, he managed to survive, and after liberation, he was transported firstly to an orphanage in Krakow and then to Switzerland, where he spent a few years before a middle-class Swiss couple, Dusseckers, adopted him. Binjamin also claimed that he had suppressed all these memories and started to rediscover them as he was getting older and older. So the descriptions in his book, although sometimes a bit vague, of course he was a child and clearly remembers just some fragments of his childhood, so still they were quite detailed with the names of concentration camps, cities, towns where he was. He was even talking about survival's guilt. So survival guilt is when someone feels guilty for surviving a tragic event while others did not. It's common in like war accidents or disasters. Survivors may ask, why did they live while they died, and feel they don't deserve happiness anymore. So Wilkomirski states, we discussed the present, but what we really meant was our past. Both of us were living among the living, yet we didn't really belong with them. He also claimed that his adopted family was not interested in his past whatsoever and couldn't understand his suffering. And after receiving numerous literature prizes for this book, including National Jewish Book Award in the US that I have mentioned before, the Jewish Quarterly Literary Prize in the UK, he was a well-known author and one of the symbols of resilience and of Holocaust survivors. And then the story was broken into pieces by a journalist named Daniel Gesfried. He was a young journalist of a Jew origin himself, whose father survived Auschwitz. Gesfried was sent to make an interview with Wilkomirski by a newspaper where he was then working. This interview was expected to be just one of those interviews with a famous writer. However, something was not sitting right with Gesfried. That is why he started to dig deeper and deeper. Gesfried understood he stumbled upon not a Holocaust survivor, but a fraud who fabricated his whole story, and even more, he was praised for it. In fact, Binjamin has never lived in Latvia or Poland. He did not even have any origins of those countries. He was also not a Jew, and he was living in Switzerland all his life. Wilkomirski was the legitimate son of Yvonne Grossjan and spent his early years in a Swiss orphanage before being adopted by the Döseker family in Zurich. There was no credible evidence supporting Wilkomirski's accounts of being in Nazi concentration camps. His descriptions were quite inconsistent with historical records. Also, official documents such as birth certificates and adoption records contradicted Wilkomirski's claims about his origins and experiences during Second World War. After that, more and more journalists and historians were concerned with the authenticity of Wilkomirski's story. The last drop was that his own agent made an investigation that confirmed that Wilkomirski made up the story and his real name was Bruno Döseker. You may ask a question, but was Bruno lying? Probably not really. Researchers who studied his case and people who knew him stated that Bruno indeed believed in his own story. He probably was not a fraud who did it to become popular in a very weird and bizarre way. He did it because he thought he remembered it. In one of his interviews, Bruno said that after the death of his adoptive parents, he found a book in their home about the psychological treatment of children who had been in concentration camps. In this book, he also found that his father made some notes and that he had underlined certain places, names, and symptoms. Döseker, already having a belief that he was a victim of Holocaust, thought that those words corresponded to his own experiences, further reinforcing his constructive memories. Again, Elizabeth Loftus has talked about the formation of false memories. She and a group of researchers found out that you can imply false memories in someone, doesn't matter if these memories are good or bad. So the interesting thing that Loftus was also studying people who were sure that they experienced some kinds of satanic rituals in their childhood. These studies were done during so-called satanic panic. It was a period, especially in the US in 1980s and early 1990s. Loftus focused on cases where therapists used suggestive questioning and hypnosis, unintentionally implementing false memories in their patients. People who originally had no recollection of abuse suddenly remembered horrific events, believing them to be real. So she demonstrated how memory is malleable. It can be shaped by external influences like leading questions, media, and therapy techniques. What is so-called leading questioning, you may ask? Let's look at these two questions. First one, you seemed really sad yesterday, right? Second one, how did you feel yesterday? Where is the suggestive question? The right answer will be question 1. This question directly states that we might have been sad the day before. However, the second question is more neutral and focuses more on the answer of a person without actually suggesting anything. These are just very, harmless questions, but if we make another example, instead of asking, do you remember your childhood? Or what do you remember about childhood? We will ask, did someone ever do something strange to you? Or, even better, are you sure you don't remember being a part of a satanic ritual? As you see, probably the answers will definitely change. So the biggest issue with suggestive questioning is not just that it guides an answer, but that it can create new false memories over time. So it is thought that Wilkomirski indeed had some hurtful memories of him staying in an orphanage and the feeling of abandonance from his family. He maybe wanted to explain it somehow to himself. Also, false memories can be a symptom in many psychological issues such as PTSD, BPD, OCD, schizophrenia, psychotic disorders, or structural brain damage that feed on these fragmented memories and fill these gaps with false information that he found highly emotional. Maybe he saw some film or a piece of news about Holocaust. Maybe he heard these kind of conversations in his closest circle of friends. In some articles regarding this case, it is stated that He was undergoing psychotherapy. However, I did not find exact records of it. And if maybe you find something, please write down below the comment about it. But if he did, the therapist might have used suggestive questioning to kinda unleash the traumatic experience. And definitely after publishing the book and being praised and sympathized because of a struggle of a child in such a horrific events, Bruno's beliefs of actually being Binjamin Wilkomirski became even stronger. Was he lying intentionally? Personally, I don't believe so. I can suggest that he did not want to become popular using someone else's tragedy. Maybe he wanted to be seen and heard. Maybe he wanted to be seen and heard by his own parents, kind of. But in a very disruptive way. And even though Döseker probably did not want to harm anyone, there were consequences. After Binjamin Wilkomirski was exposed as a fraud, some researchers coined the term Wilkomirski syndrome to describe cases where individuals adopt false traumatic identities so deeply that they actually genuinely believe in them. This phenomena highlights how suggestibility, media, again, and personal psychology can create entirely fabricated yet emotionally real pasts in someone's mind. People with Wilkomirski syndrome often have emotional conviction, so they deeply believe in their false memories, they feel it, they tend to have fragmented identity. Also, it can be therapeutic reinforcement. Some may recover memories through suggestive therapy, hypnosis, or exposure to survivors' testimonies. Important thing is that this syndrome is not just about lying, it's about false memory identity, where a person absorbs and internalizes a history that never happened to them. Unfortunately, the Wilkomirski case damaged the credibility of Holocaust testimonies. Survivors who had already faced denialism and revisionism now had to deal with increased skepticism because Wilkomirski's story was very, very popular back then. His fabricated story gave Holocaust deniers ammunition, unfortunately, reinforcing their claims that some testimonies cannot be real. Also, it undermined real survivors' voices, making people question first-hand accounts. And the last one, it harmed genuine historical research, and historians now had to work even harder to verify those testimonies. And you understand that it is very hard for people to talk about Holocaust, and now it became even harder. So many Holocaust survivors expressed anger and betrayal, stating that Wilkomirski trivialized their pain and suffering. His case became a textbook example of how false memories can distort history and harm real people, real victims. Another major issue is that both Wilkomirski's case and the Satanic Panic case that I have briefly touched before were influenced by suggestive therapy techniques in particular that were quite popular during 1980s and 1990s. So methods like hypnosis or guided imagery intended to recover lost memories, they often led people to construct completely false narratives. Therapists unknowingly planted ideas of abuse, making patients remember events that actually never occurred. And yet, again, memories of traumatic events in particular can be forgotten as a part of psychological coping mechanism when the brain just blocks them, shielding us from harmful and unpleasant recollections. So I'm not denying that. Some survivors genuinely struggle to recall traumatic moments until something triggers them. I emphasize that recovered memories are not false memories, right? These are not the same term, and that recovered memories are true, and we should listen to people who claim that they have survived some abuse or trauma. But here's the danger. Memories can be altered, distorted, or even completely fabricated. Although the techniques such as suggestive therapy, hypnosis, and leading questions are not working for everyone, in some people they can create false memories, and these false memories will feel just as real as true ones. Binjamin Wilkomirski's case is more than just literally a hoax. It's a lesson about the inaccuracy of human memory. His story teaches us that even the most vivid, deeply felt memories can be false, that we can believe in something completely, live by it, suffer from it, and still be wrong. His lie, whether intentional or not, had consequences. It fueled skepticism toward real Holocaust survivors, gave ammunition to those who denied history, and showed how easily a false memory, once accepted, can reshape our entire identity. Wilkomirski's case is not just about one man, it's about all of us. And next time you recall something, ask yourself, did it really happen? So, thank you so much guys for watching. Again, if you like this video, please leave a comment, subscribe to this channel. I hope I will be making more and more videos like that. Maybe you can even share some false memories that you remember from your life. Thank you again and see you soon.